Welcome to Herbs in the Classroom. We are excited for you to participate in this project as a part of our Farm to School events going on this fall in Montgomery County. My name is Ashley Adair. I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Educator for Purdue Extension in Montgomery County, and I'll be your guide during this project. So first off, let's start. What is an herb? An herb is any plant with leaves, seeds, or flowers that are used in flavoring food, medicine, or perfume. We're going to be focusing on culinary herbs with this project, and 4 specific species to be exact. Why are herbs important? So historically, herbs have been used for a number of different purposes. Those are including but not limited to flavoring food, which we're often most familiar with, but also with masking nasty smells, treating illnesses, dyeing fabric, and even ceremonial traditions such as smudging. What you see here is a smudge stick that is made of wrapped sage, and that can be lit on fire and used in ceremonial traditions and religious ceremonies to cleanse or purify a space. But like I said, we'll be focusing on the food flavoring aspect of herbs. And that food flavoring aspect is one of the many reasons that the herbs we're going to use in this project are actually used in food. So herbs are used in food for their flavor, aroma, and color. The herbs that we have selected for this project are primarily used for flavor and aroma, but some herbs that you might use for color include herbs like turmeric, which give food an orange color. Why do herbs make flavors, aromas, and colors? So all herbs contain organic compounds that can be found in various combinations in those plants in order to give them the flavors and aromas that they're known for. So for example, thymol is found in thyme. There are many other types of compounds that are found in herbs, and that might be something interesting to touch on in chemistry if you're interested in doing that with this project. Why do herbs make those flavors, aromas, and colors? So like I said, those herbs are going to contain multiple combinations of those compounds. A few examples here. So we have carvone, which is one that's found in caraway and dill, which kind of makes caraway and dill have similar flavor profiles. On the other hand, we have astragal, which is found in basil and tarragon. So these compounds can kind of make some herbs taste similar to others, but the different combinations that are found within plants can give different flavor profiles to those different herbs. So let's talk about your kit. We're using a Loaco herb garden kit that has 4 different species available to you. And there's seed packets, soil pucks, if you will, as well as the pots that you need to grow them inside these kits. There's also a small instruction booklet that has some pretty solid instructions for how to get started. We're going to go through some details on how to grow each of these species here in this presentation, and then you can refer to your instruction booklet for more information. Your instruction booklet will suggest soaking the seeds in hot water before planting them, and I don't think that's entirely necessary. One interesting experiment you might do with the herb gardens is to actually compare seeds that were soaked versus seeds that were not soaked and see if their germination rates are different. We'll start with basil. Basil is an herb that is often used in Italian cuisine, but this is a cold-sensitive plant. It's a plant that when you harvest it, you don't want to store it in the refrigerator because when the plant goes below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the leaves will start to turn black. So growing them indoors, you should not be getting down to temperatures of 50 degrees, but just in case you do decide to set the plant outside, or if you're harvesting it and wondering how to preserve the leaves, please avoid those cooler temperatures. A bright south-facing window is best for basil. It's a full sun plant, needs 6 to 8 hours of sunlight per day. Well-drained soil is best. You shouldn't have anything to worry about with the peat pucks that we're using for this project. If the basil plant starts to flower, you can pinch those flowers back to prevent seeding and prevent plant dieback. You can also trim the stems to make the plant bushier over time. Next up is cilantro, a familiar herb that we often see used in Mexican cuisines, especially in salsas. Cilantro needs at least 6 hours of light per day, just like basil. East or west facing windows work well for cilantro because it can get sunburnt, but it can survive in a south facing window as well. Well drained soil is best. In some cases, folks will plant this in half cactus mix and half potting mix, but your little soil puck should be just fine. Allow cilantro to dry out between waterings. Also, maintain a bushy foliage by trimming it regularly. So just like with basil, you can trim the stems back and encourage branching. If it starts to flower, you can trim those flowers back. Otherwise, you can let those flowers continue to grow, and then the plant will make coriander, which is the seed of the cilantro plant. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now moving on to chives. Chives are very similar to onions, but they have a pretty purple flower at the ends of their leaves. Chives need at least 6 hours of light per day. An east or west facing window is best, but they can tolerate full sun in that south facing window. Potting soil alone works fine, so your little puck should be fine as well. These can be divided, so once chives get too large, you can divide the plant into two, and you can plant the halves into new pots. And it's worth noting that you can also eat the flowers. Last but not least for your kit is parsley. Parsley needs at least 6 hours of light per day. East or west is best. Potting soil works well, and so will your soil puck. And then this one's pretty easy. Just trim it regularly to maintain that bushy foliage. What if you don't have enough light? So not every classroom and every facility is going to have a south-facing window. Some of your classrooms may not have windows at all. So in that case, my suggestion to you would be to get a full spectrum bulb of some kind. Since your kit is fairly small, you could use a full spectrum bulb that fits into a standard A-series lamp socket. These bulbs can be bought at home improvement stores and usually run $25 or less. If you're looking to grow more herbs over time, you could consider buying a shelving unit and getting some either fluorescent bulbs or LED bulbs in the full spectrum range and setting up a seed starting station. If you would like more information about that, please don't hesitate to contact me and we can discuss the materials you might need to do this. Usually it'll cost you under $100 to set up a shelving unit with lamps. So a few other herbs to try indoors. We'll go through these rather quickly, but in case you're considering trying other indoor herb options, we have several others available. Coriander is one that would be easy to get from your cilantro plant. You just allow that cilantro to flower and produce seed. After the plant flowers, those seeds will start to turn brown. You can clip the seed heads off and dry those upside down in a paper bag. You can also dry other herbs in this fashion. So if you're considering growing any of these other herbs or just drying any of the herbs you're growing in our kit, then you can dry them upside down in a paper bag that has some holes in it in order to let them dry without getting moldy. Now moving on to oregano. This is another bright light plant. It likes well-drained soil. Most of our herbs will require you to let the soil dry out between waterings, but that's a good general rule to follow. You definitely want to avoid getting water on the leaves with this particular plant. And if you're growing it for multiple years, give it a haircut each spring so that it can branch out a little bit more. Now for thyme. Thyme is a popular herb, another good one to grow indoors. It's a bright light plant. You must allow it to dry out between waterings. Another one where you want to avoid getting water on the leaves, and that's because they're hairy, just like oregano. And a haircut might be necessary in spring for this one as well. Mint is a good herb that you might consider using on sweeter options, such as ice cream or other desserts. This one is one that is a full sun plant, but it can tolerate east or west facing windows. It grows relatively quickly, so it's good for being in a container so it doesn't get out of hand and continue to take over your entire yard. So it's nice for growing indoors. Also, potting soil works just fine for this one, but you want to make sure not to overwater, so allow it to dry out between waterings. Now we have dill. Dill is a bright light plant as well. It prefers a south-facing window. It needs to dry out between waterings, and it's a good idea to use a deep pot if possible. It typically develops a long taproot, and you'll notice the plant starting to struggle if it's in a shallow pot. Thank you for listening today. We hope you have a fantastic time growing the herbs in your herb kit. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me via the email you received this link in, and happy herb gardening.